5 years of age, and was moving into his 6th year of age. So let's go back. Just a little. There's the deity, and there's a nice backdrop before addressing the deity. So we're going to do the backdrop. Krishna was born in Mathura. He was born as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. And that very night, the 8th child of Devaki made this request. He appeared in his Vishnu four-armed form. Most children don't appear like that. And they offered their prayers, first Vasudeva, then Devaki. And he then requested, I'm going to assume a childlike form. Please transfer me from the prison house of Kamsa out of the prison house, across the river Jamuna, to the other side of the river Jamuna, in Gokul. Why Gokul? Because that's where Nanda and Jasoda were residing. Why were Nanda and Jasoda residing there? Because their ancestral home was on the west side. But he, Nanda, and his dear friend Vrishabhanu, they were without children. And they felt it may be more auspicious if we shift our residence from our ancestral home to the east side in Gokul. So Krishna was taken to Gokul, and placed by the side of Mother Jasoda, the female child was taken, etc. So for the first 3 years and 4 months of Krishna's life, he lived in Vrindavan, in Gokula. And many, many, many nice pastimes enjoyed by Mother Jasoda and Nanda and all the Brajabasis, and many, 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 many. However, through all the joy of those wonderful pastimes, there's always a problem, even in Gokula. There were demons. If one, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next. So the elders had an elder conference, and they decided it's a good idea if we, to protect Krishna, our beloved Krishna, of course everyone else, but their cynosure of their affection was upon Krishna, naturally so, eternally so. They decided, let us shift back to Vrindavan, to the west side of the river Jamuna, and maybe Krishna will be more safe over there. It was like a very Krishna conscious thing to do, child protection. There's a very nice description Prabhupada would enjoy describing. In one day, they picked up everything, put it on the back of bullock carts, and shifted to the other side of the river Jamuna and came in for landing on the western side of the river Jamuna. Try to move your home in one day. The whole village. And 900,000 cows and everything, and paraphernalia, and it's not how people do things today. But they did. And so they were 2 or 3 places, and then eventually Nanda ended up in his ancestral home, which is Nandagram, up on the palace up on the hill. Some of you have been there and you've seen. And Vrishabhanu in Varsana, not far from one another, because they're dear friends, very dear friends. And from the time that Krishna was 3 years, 4 months, it exploded within him how much he loved the cows, and naturally the cows loved him. It's not, they didn't have to learn to love one another. It was just their natural love. And he went with his father every day to take care of the cows, and he started making strong requests. He wanted to herd the cows. And his father said, the cows are too big. year, 3 years, 4 months. Too big. But he was insistent, and little boys can be pretty determined. And so an arrangement was made that he could take care of the calves instead of the cows. So towards the end of his 3rd year, that was his daily activity. Of course, it wasn't just herding the calves. The actual situation was he was with his cowherd boyfriends, and they were playing and playing and playing and doing cowherd boyfriend things. And the cows would just tag along because they were so attached to Krishna. So Gopastami took place when further, this is some text we'll hear from, mainly from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 9. So let's go forward. Soon after Krishna began walking, before he was not a toddler, he was a crawler, it was decided by the elders that the community of cowherds should move to Vrindavan, from the eastern side of Jamuna to the western side, from Gokul to Vrindavan. Once in Vrindavan, Krishna soon developed the desire to herd the calves. Before he was initiated into cow herding, that's Gopastami, he was initiated into calf herding. It is stated in the Kartik Mahatmya section of Padma Purana. So not only Srimad Bhagavatam describes, we'll hear the Srimad Bhagavatam verses, but other Puranas describe the same thing. Specifically, the 8th lunar day of the bright fortnight of the month of Kartik. That's today. It's known by authorities as Gopastami. From that day, Lord Vasudeva served as a cowherd, whereas previously he attended the calves. So it's a nice painting. There's many nice paintings here. But it's showing Krishna and Balaram, and Krishna is blowing on his buffalo horn. And as the buffalo horn is being heard, the cowherd boys are following, and the cows are following the cowherd boys. And this is his Gopastami graduation day. It says in the verse in Padma Purana, the word padau, and commentary says that padau means that Krishna was not only blessing the cowherd boys and the calves, but the land of Vrindavan. Just by walking on the surface of Vrindavan, he was blessing the land of Vrindavan. In the Bhagavatam, actually it's not chapter 9, it's chapter 15. So we're going to see this verse several times in commentary on this verse because it's the Gopastami day verse. Gopastami is the day on which Krishna and Balaram and the other boys their age who previously attended the calves were given charge of the cows. Here's the verse, 10:15:1. You see in the first line, it says Poganda. So Poganda begins at 6 and it goes up to 10. The pastimes of Krishna before that, from Gokula and up until he was turned 6, was his Bala Lila, Bala Kishore. And here's the translation of the verse. When Lord Rama and Lord Krishna attained the age of Poganda, while living in Vrindavan, the cowherd men allowed them to take up the task of tending the cows. Engaging thus in the company of their friends, the two boys rendered the land of Vrindavan most auspicious by imprinting upon it the marks of their lotus feet. That's the Padau message. Now, no surprise, chapter 15 comes right after chapter 14. And in chapter 14 and in chapter 13, we hear about these two pastimes. One of the pastimes was as you see in the painting, Krishna rescuing the cowherd boys from the mouth of Aghasura. And then after rescuing the cowherd boys from the mouth of Aghasura, Krishna went to have lunch. That was chapter 13. Then chapter 14 is this one, where Lord Brahma has this experience of seeing Krishna's pastime, the Aghasura pastime, from the sky, watching the pastime. He began to become puzzled. And he began to think, what is the extent of Krishna's potency? How potent, how powerful is he? That's okay. We can ask that question. But what he did next wasn't very good. He wanted to test his strength against Krishna's strength and see what Krishna would do. That was a big boo-boo. And so, the past time we know, he kidnapped the calves. And when the calves were missing while they're having their lunch, there was discussion, where'd the calves go? And Krishna said, don't worry, I'll find, you finish your lunch. And he left looking for the calves. And when he was gone looking for the calves, Brahma came and kidnapped the cowherd boys. Little boys, whole bunch of them. Put them in a cave and sealed the cave with a stone. He came back to see what Krishna would do. You know the pastime. It's nice to hear the pastime, hundreds and hundreds of times. What happened when he came back? There were the cowherd boys having lunch. So he did a double take. Wait a minute. They just put them in the caves and went to the cave, and they were in the cave. They went back and they were having lunch. And then to help Brahma get a nice realization, he simultaneously showed the form of each calf and each cowherd boy exactly like the calf and the cowherd boy, and simultaneously a four-armed Narayan form right behind each one of the calves and each one of the cowherd boys, showing all the opulences of Narayan with each one of those forms of Narayan. There's more to the story, but I'll just read the purport. This is from text 1 of chapter 15. Lord Krishna wanted to encourage his cowherd boyfriends who had been swallowed by Aghasura and then stolen by Lord Brahma. Therefore, the Lord decided to bring them into the palm tree forest called Talavan, where there are many delicious ripe fruits. So it's like a break in the tension of being in the mouth of a serpent and then being put in a cave. So that was his intention this particular day. Chapter 15. Now notice the previous chapters is with calves, and now it's cows. It's that quick of a transition. The purport continues. Since Lord Krishna's spiritual body had apparently grown slightly in age and in strength, the senior men of Vrindavan, headed by Nanda Maharaj, decided to promote Krishna from the task of herding calves to the status of a regular cowherd boy. He would now take care of the full-grown cows, bulls, and oxen. Big guys for a little boy. Out of great affection, Nanda Maharaj had previously considered Krishna too small and immature to take care of full-grown cows and bulls. Nice painting. This is the occasion of Gopastami. Of course, the cows and the calves are craning their necks to reach Krishna. But next to Krishna is Balaram in his nice blue dhoti. And behind Krishna are Nanda, and to his side is Mother Jasoda, and some brahmanas and some elder gopis. And the whole village was part of this big celebration. Krishna beginning to take care of the cows. This is Prabhupada's language. Surabhi Palayantam. Where does that come from? Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam. From Brahma Samhita. Krishna's dharma is cow herding. Surabhi Avipalayantam. When Mother Yashoda tried to restrain him, he stole away and mixed with the older boys who were already in charge of the calves. After all, it's difficult to change one's nature. So now there comes a whole section of, can we change our nature? Or do we just dovetail our nature? And does purification involve changing of nature? So this discussion is just commentary that Prabhupada's speaking on this. Our nature is faulty. We are prone to illusion. Even though we are by nature souls, and we are defective and thus prone to our present condition. So the illustration tells it all. But we're conditioned souls. And with that conditioning, there's tendencies. There's a very nice discussion in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu about the difference between material tendency and spiritual tendency. The Sanskrit word is vasana. So we have our impressions and impressions and lifetimes worth of impressions, and they're stored in this nice little compartment called the mind. And those are tendencies that repeat and repeat and repeat commonly in conditioned souls. However, what happens when our conditioning becomes relieved? Is there such a thing as spiritual vasanas, according to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu? Yes. And those spiritual vasanas are the living entities' sthai bhava, the natural spiritual tendency for service to Krishna. And there's different types, but they're intrinsic and they're already there. They're not developed necessarily over many, many lifetimes, although if someone practices bhakti over many, many lifetimes, then there are such tendencies. But that's okay. Material tendencies is what's being described here, and that's faulty. However, our good fortune is that Krishna has his nature, and Krishna is very affectionate. The painting is showing Gopakumar after a long journey to get to Krishna Loka, simply from chanting his mantra, his Madan Gopal mantra, he eventually makes his full connection with Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, in the spiritual world. And Krishna is showing his appreciation, very affectionate to receive Gopakumar. There's a nice discussion, this is from Brihat Bhagavatamrita. When he goes to Vaikuntha, the Lord says to him, I thought maybe this lifetime he'll come back. But you didn't come back. And the next lifetime I was thinking, maybe in this lifetime he'll come back. But you didn't come back. And so the Lord is more anxious to have us return than we are. Because he's very compassionate. So it's our misfortune, but it's also our fortune that he's so affectionate, so compassionate. One of the names of Krishna, as we know, is Govinda, very celebrated name, and it was Surabhi cow, or Surabhi from the spiritual world, Surabhi, that came, and by performing Abhishek unto Krishna after the Govardhan Lila, she gave the name Govinda. You're our Lord, not Indra. You're our Lord. You're Govinda. You give pleasure to the cows. It's one of the meanings of the name Govinda. But he doesn't only give pleasure to the cows, He gives pleasure to the senses. And the world is made up of senses. Of course, there's matter, but there's senses that are wanting to be the enjoyers of matter. And Krishna gives the ultimate pleasure to the senses, purifies the senses, and gives satisfaction to the senses, and thus Govinda. He's beneficial for the whole world. And how does he benefit the whole world? He enters the world and manifests his wonderful pastimes that give us an opportunity. Over there on the left is a fellow that looks pretty sad or lonely or depressed or something. And Krishna sees the unhappiness of conditioned souls, and he wants to do something. I mean, he's compassionate. Compassionate person wants to do something. We want to do something on behalf of Krishna as an instrument of Krishna, but it's Krishna that's behind it. So he comes and not only kills demons, but he attracts the hearts and the minds and the senses, and satisfies persons in this material world by his wonderful pastimes and giving us also the opportunity to do what we're doing tonight, hearing about one of his wonderful pastimes, his Gopastami pastime. That gives Krishna's pleasure to do this, and it gives the living entities who are the recipients of Krishna's mercy to receive the same happiness. Mother Yashoda wanted to restrain Krishna. He had an unstoppable desire to be with the cows. In fact, it's his eternal position. So after herding the calves for some time, in the close, because the calves didn't go out all day long like the cows did, they would just go a shorter distance, and that was okay. But for Krishna, it wasn't sufficient. So they had a big festival, Gopastami festival. And along with the festival, the paraphernalia used for herding the cows were also bestowed or gifted to the boys. So they needed some ropes and some sticks, some horns. Krishna had already his flute. And off they went. However, when many items of paraphernalia were given to Krishna, one of the things they wanted very much was his little tender feet, that he's going to go through the forest where there's stones and thorns and all kinds of sharp things. So they want him to wear shoes. Krishna's answer was, no, I'll wear shoes only if you make shoes for every one of the cows. 4, because they have 4 feet. And they said, well, cows already have shoes. I said, I won't go unless they all have shoes. So they surrendered to Krishna. And there's a lesson. Some of you have been to Vrindavan. How many here have been to Vrindavan? Oh, good. Very good. And those that have yet to go to Vrindavan, may you one day go to Vrindavan. One day. More than one day, for some time. And one of the things that you'll do almost for certain, however long you stay, is you go to Govardhan Hill and circumambulate Govardhan Hill. Don't make the mistake of getting in a taxi and driving around Govardhan Hill in a taxi. Don't do that. Some people do that. If you're an oldster, you can maybe do that. But anyone else, you go circumambulate around Govardhan Hill. And it takes a good part of a day, but that's fine. And when you do that, don't wear your shoes. Really? No shoes? The whole day? Barefoot? Yes. Because it's not only maybe you've noticed the painting I have on my screensaver. It's the Parikrama path around Govardhan Hill. And there's Vraj most of the way. Sometimes it's not so natural, but most of it is your feet are in constant touch with the dust of Vrindavan. And that in itself is purifying. And there may be some austerity, that's okay. Maybe practice a bit before you do the Govardhan Parikrama, so your feet are a little tougher. Go barefoot. And part of the message, along with you don't go with shoes, not just because Krishna did, we don't walk on Braj Raj with your shoes, but you leave behind all the other things that are on the bottom of shoes, or the worldly contamination, and become purified instead by contact. So in the beginning part of chapter 15, which took part as part of Gopastami, here it says preceded Gopastami, then the festival, and then Krishna took the cowherd boys, as we heard before, to the Talavan forest. And the Talavan forest is a forest where there's tall trees having fruits called tal fruits, and before there's fruits, there's flowers, and the flowers are very fragrant, and even the fruits are very fragrant, and they're very tasteful. However, there was a problem. There's a problem even in Vrindavan, so don't worry if you have a problem. Go to Vrindavan and get Vrindavan problems. There was a demon, an asura, named Denuka, and he was the envious type. He didn't want anyone coming into his forest. If they did, he would kill them and eat them. He wasn't a nice guy. And he had, as you see in the painting, he had a bunch of buddies. So when the cowherd boys went into the forest, led there by Krishna, fearless because Krishna is their protector, they, particularly Balaram, started shaking the tree, and the fruits fell to the ground. And Denuka heard the sound of the fruits falling to the ground and said, "Who's come into my forest?" And he went charging full steam ahead to combat and kill those people that came into his forest. Well, that was a mistake. Because the residents of Vrindavan had stayed away from that place, although there's nice fruits, because of Denuka. But Balaram, as you see in the painting, he took care of it. He this and that and the other thing, and he grabbed him by the hind legs and twirled him around and threw him into the tops of a tree. And then Krishna did the same, as you see in the center of the painting. Many more of the ass demons came charging out, and the same result. You can't see because this language is at the top of the screen, but the painting shows there are a bunch of donkeys hanging on the branches in the top of the tall trees. And as they were hanging on the top of the tall trees, the fruits fell. The cowherd's boys had a nice time eating the tall fruits. Chapter 15, Canto 10. So going on, he's now taking care of the cows, but as I mentioned, it's not just taking care of cows, he's having fun with the cowherd boys. They would play their musical instruments, sing, sometimes wrestle, sometimes this, sometimes just play games, and the cows would just hang around. That was cow protection for the cowherd boys. And from time to time, they would go to new places because they would have fresh grass, and they had a wonderful time in the forest. Sometimes there were priests that as they approached, priests were also there. Krishna was very respectful to the priest. He bowed down before the priests, washed their feet, offered prayers and praise. The cows, he fed them, firstly with his own hand, and Krishna bowed down before the cows. Krishna loved the cows. and the cows love Krishna. Now, during this period of time, you see some gopis, because even if he's just young, 6 to 10, the activities with the gopis also began at the same time. I'll just read the text. Nanda Baba then placed a jeweled cowherd's staff in his son's hand, and Yashoda Mai, the queen of Braja, anointed Krishna's forehead with tilak, saying, Rama, you stay in front of Krishna. Subal, you stay behind him. Sridham and Sudama, stay on his side. And the rest of you gather around him, for he is your dear friend. So this is mother talk, and the other one is father talk. And there's the gopis bringing nice items for their beloved Krishna. Of course, Krishna shared with all the cowherd boys. So the commentary is speaking, we're still on the first day when Krishna went out taking care of the cows. And you see what they're doing in the painting? Does it look like they're herding cows or look like they're playing? We already mentioned. That was their program. And not only they were playing and frolicking, but sometimes they would do so many other things. They would do boy things, tug of war, a football with the bale fruits, hide and seek, this and that. And then they would sit and have their lunch. And it was just delightful pastimes. There's a very nice, right in the midst of describing all this, Shukadev Goswami speaks a verse or part of a verse where Prabhupada quoted many, many times, hundreds of times. How many pious activities have these cowherd boys undergone? Krita Punya Punja. Punya is piety. Krita, how many pious activities have they performed to have this privilege of being in these loving exchanges with Krishna? But it wasn't just the cowherd boys and the calves and the cows. The whole of Vraja. Again, this is within Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but it's to explain the rasa of Vraja. But all the living entities felt they were most dear to Krishna, and he reciprocated with each one, and they were perfectly satisfied. The painting is showing peacocks, swans, cows, trees, birds, foliage, lotus flowers, and Krishna would simply glance upon them, and they would feel great jubilation receiving Krishna's glance, and he would smile. It's said that he could speak in all the languages of all the forest animals, and they were very, very happy just being part of Krishna's pastimes. And this is the last of the slides in relation to Gopastami. The pastime to the gopis also began. Sometimes Krishna would go to Radhakund and Shamakund, and the gopis would be there, and they would have their lunch together, and they would have wonderful pastimes together. So this is the introduction to Gopastami, and now comes another very nice description. Here's the other very nice description. On a different day, the same Gopastami day, there's a pastime that's described where you see on the far left, that's Jatila, the so-called mother-in-law of Radha when she was living in Yavat. And over on the right side is Krishna, because Radha was being restrained by Jatila. They couldn't meet. And Krishna was very sad. You see the tear coming from the corner of his eye. Very sad face. So the pastime is described this way. Radharani was restricted to leave her house by her mother-in-law Jatila, and as a result, she couldn't go meet Govinda. So Govinda, Krishna, Hari, felt great separation and was crying. And he was crying and crying and calling out Radharani's name. in great distress. So one of his dearmost friends, painted here, is Subal. And Subal had a certain complexion, golden, like Radharani. And sometimes people got confused between Subal and Radharani. So Subal said to Krishna, "Don't worry, I'll figure out a way so that you can meet with Radha today." He's a very clever young boy. So what did he do? He went to Radharani's house in Yavat and he spoke to the mother, Jatila, and he said that one of my calves wandered from the herd and went into your house. So I'd like your permission to go into the house and look for my missing calf. Jatila was mistrustful. She didn't trust Krishna at all. And Subal was a dear friend of Krishna. So she said, "Okay, but you find the calf and get out of the house as soon as possible." So Subal went into the house along with Radharani. She had many of her friends because Radharani's not alone. She has many gopi friends and they're constant companions. At night they go home, but soon first thing in the morning they're with Radha again. So they liked the idea. Subal had an idea that he would change clothes with Radharani because their complexion was similar. And so the cowherd ladies, the gopis, they liked the idea. So they did a clothes change. That is, Subal dressed like a gopi and Radharani dressed like a gopa. And the idea was for then now Radharani can go meet Krishna, but there was a little bit of a problem. The proportions of her body are a little different than Subal's. And so she picked up a calf and put it across her chest. So when she walked out of the house, Jatila wouldn't notice. She spoke in a voice sounding like Subal's voice and said, "I found my calf. I'm going now." And there's Jatila making cow patties just outside the house. Inside the house is the sister-in-law or the daughter of Jatila. Her name is Kutila. You all know. Jatila and Kutila. Obstacles in Krishna's pastimes of enjoying with Srimati Radharani. And so when Radharani, looking like Subal, went all the way to where Krishna was, and she saw Krishna looking so sad, she wanted to enjoy the pastime further. So she said to Krishna, "I was unsuccessful. I couldn't bring Radharani. Very, very sorry." And when she spoke like that, sounding like Subal, Krishna began to cry profusely, so uncontrollably, hoping that Subal would be successful. But now he's even more distressed because Subal wasn't successful. The language in this description is Priyatama. So Priya means one who is dear, and Uttama means the topmost. So Radharani is sometimes referred to in relation to Krishna as his Priyatama, the topmost dear one. And when Radharani saw this mood of Krishna, it was so sad and sorrowful, just get worse when he heard in the voice sounding like Subal that he wasn't able to bring her. She had a big smile. It's a nice painting, isn't it? Big smile. Beautiful lips, red as bimba fruits, and displaying a row of shining white teeth, which appeared like a row of precious pearls, and she embraced Krishna with her graceful lotus stem-like arms. And as soon as her arms embraced Krishna, he was very happy. Immense pleasure and full satisfaction. He realized it wasn't Subal after all, it was Radharani. And he became most joyful. Here the name is given Govinda Mohini. So Mohini is Radha, and she's bewildering the mind of Govinda by this nice pastime. Now, some of you know, did you do that here? Is Radharani dressed as a cowherd boy? Okay, great. I didn't notice when I came in. Here's in Houston. No, excuse me, this is Vrindavan. There you see Radharani is wearing a dhoti, and Radharani is wearing a turban, not a crown. And Radharani has in her right hand a rope for controlling the cows, and there's Krishna by her side. And this is, even in our deity worship within our centers, it's a very sweet pastime of loving exchange between Radha and Krishna. There's several temple deity photos. This one is in Houston. And Radharani's standing there and wearing a dhoti. And notice by her right arm, there's a calf. Now, in some places, they do this a little bit differently. Here, this is in Ireland. She has a big calf holding across her chest and also wearing a dhoti, and another temple in a similar appearance. Now it's 7:18, and I have another. Today is not only Gopastami, but it's the disappearance day of Srinivasacharya. So I'd like to say a few words in honor of Srinivasacharya. Many of you know, in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, just before text of Bhagavad Gita, at the end of the introduction, there's the list of disciplic succession. Now, previously, Srinivas Acharya was in that list of disciplic succession, and I just noticed it's now Narottam Das Thakur. They were contemporaries, but previously, I'm very clear, it was Srinivas Acharya, and there's a reason why. Srinivas Acharya was described by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his angsa, or Avesha avatar, which is pretty significant. An expansion of Krishna, the expansion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's love. I'll read the text quickly. Srinivasacharya appeared during the end of Mahaprabhu's life. His father was known as Gangadhar Bhattacharya. Bhattacharya is a title of a Brahmana. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas in Katwa, he went mad because it meant he wouldn't see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as much as he was able to see him before he took sannyas. And so in his madness, he was just saying Chaitanya's name because that was the name that was given during his sannyas initiation, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So he just kept saying over and over, Chaitanya. Oh, Chaitanya. Oh, Chaitanya. So they started calling him Chaitanya Das instead of Gangadhar. And Gangadhar was very detached from anything worldly. However, at some point in time, after Mahaprabhu's sannyas and going to Puri, he developed a strong desire to have a qualified son. So he spoke about that with his wife, and she said, let this be blessed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Let us go to Puri and get his blessing. And so on the way from where they were residing, which was further north, they stopped at his wife, Lakshmi Priya's parents' home. And they spent some days and then they continued on to Puri. to take Lord Chaitanya's blessings. Now, this is all from Bhakti Ratnakar. And a little background, Bhakti Ratnakar is a book that was written specifically to describe the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after his departure, meaning during his lifetime, that's Chaitanya Charitamrita and other biographies. So this is an authorized, very respected series of descriptions of histories of these personalities. In this Bhakti Ratnakar, it says, when he came, while he was to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was still paying obeisances, and Mahaprabhu said to Govinda that this couple have come with a desire to have a son. And before they finished paying obeisances, they hadn't said anything. They have a desire to have a son. Indeed, his wife will give birth to a jewel of a son who will be named Srinivas. He will be the manifest form of my love and will be none different from me. It's like, it wasn't just the three of them in the room and Govinda. It was, everyone heard. And therefore, this report is being presented in Bhakti Ratnakar. He specifically described him in that way, and he became known in that way. And his gift to the world was like that also. Then Mahaprabhu, in a trance-like state, spoke further. This is from Bhakti Ratnakar. He will very soon have a son. I will bring scriptures into the world through Sri Rupa and others, and these jewel-like books will be distributed by Srinivas, who is the embodiment of pure love for me. They spent some time in Puri, husband and wife, meeting the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri. After some time, they returned back to their home, and after some time, a son was born, and Balaram Vipra was his wife's father. His wife's father was a superlative astrologer, and the astrologer indicated this child will be a Mahapurusha, a very unique personality. And so they now have a son, Srinivas, and his father was a learned Bhatta, and his father taught him scriptures along the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His mother taught him kirtan, and he grew and did his studies very quickly. After some time, he learned what his father had to teach. He became a very close associate of Narahari Sarkar, who plays an important role later in his life also. Sri Khanda, maybe some of you have been to these places in Mayapur. I'm not sure when I'll go back again, but they're nice places to go to. So the place that, here's a nice painting. These three personalities, after some time, Srinivas went to Vrindavan to study under Jiva Goswami, and he became a student, as well as Shamananda and Narottam Das Thakur. So the three became exalted students and scholars. This description is there. Jiva Goswami personally gave him the title Acharya when he heard him giving an explanation of a verse for Rupa Goswami's writings. Ujjvala Nilamani was so astounding, he gave him the title Acharya. So Srinivas became Srinivas Acharya. And after they were thoroughly trained, another very important event in Srinivas Acharya's life took place. After training them, Janava, who was the wife of Nityananda, who was living in the eastern part of India, Ekachakra specifically, and traveling here and there because she was a great Vaishnavi. He sent a messenger with a letter to Jiva Goswami, please take the books of the Goswamis and make them available to this part of India. And so he did. And it's a wonderful adventure. They packed books and books and books because one of the many things Jiva Goswami did was he had many brahmanas that were making handmade copies of books. So the books were piled up on an ox cart. The ox cart was sent to go in an easterly direction to fulfill the request of Jandava. However, the books were stolen. And when they woke up in the morning and the bullock cart was gone and the books were gone, it was devastation because this was Jiva Goswami's assignment, their teacher, their guru. And what to do. A decision was made that Srinivas would stay and search for the books, and the others would go without the books and do their preaching in that part of the country. By Srinivasacharya's preaching in that district, the king came to hear about his glories. The king invited him to speak at his palace, and the king was so moved by Srinivasacharya's gift at speaking that he gave him special attention. And in the course of time, the king wanted to know, is there something I can do for you? And Srinivas said, yes. I was waiting for you to ask. The books. Help me find the books. And he described the mission that he was on behalf of Jiva Goswami. And Bir Hambir, the king, said, oh, my astrologer told me that into my kingdom was coming the greatest of all treasures. And so I sent some thieves to steal the greatest of all treasures to put in my treasury. But when I got the treasure, it was books. I thought my astrologer made a boo-boo. But now I understand. These are your books. Please take them and accept my apology. We'll make extra copies, and so forth and so on. Mir Hambir became a king who became a disciple of Srinivasacharya and helped spread Krishna Bhakti in that kingdom. And there's many other things, but because of time, I'm not going to go into the many other things. Here's one of those many other things. Srinivasacharya and Narottam were dear friends. And this is a painting at Yajigram where they observed there's the same tree is there, the same little platform underneath the tree where they sat. And the painting is showing a wedding procession where Ramchandra Kaviraj was being married, and it was big fanfare with music and this and that. Purposefully, Srinivasacharya spoke loud enough that Ramchandra Kaviraj could hear him. Just see this fool. Big display for material enjoyment. What kind of brahmana is this? And so, etc., whatever he spoke. Later, Ramchandra Kaviraj came back to meet the person who spoke those words. And in the course of their interacting with one another, Ramchandra Kaviraj became his disciple. Ramchandra Kaviraj became a next in succession, disciplic succession, a great personality, a great learned personality, and a follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings just from this one interaction and the rest that followed. If you visit Yajigram, you'll see this place where there's a bhajan kutir. Inside the bhajan kutir is a murti of Srinivasacharya. Here's a close-up of that same murti. And along with Srinivasacharya, this is another painting you may find at this place in Yajigram. Narottam Das Thakur is on one side, Ramchandra Kaviraj is on the other side, and they spent much time together. In course of time, Srinivasacharya's mother very much desired that he become married, and as you remember, another person, Narahari Sarkar, heard from his mother that desire, and Srinivasacharya, third thing, had a dream in which Advaitacharya appeared in a dream and told him to get married. So he got married. Ishani became his wife, later on a second wife. So this is a nice example in our disciplic succession of a Grahastha Acharya. This is the altar, and there's a close-up, some close-ups of the deities. The tall deities are Srinivasacharya's deities of Nitai Gauranga Mahaprabhu. The Mahaprabhu on our left side, or the deity's right side, is the deity of Narottam Das Thakur. On the far right, you can see the Sadbhuj form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and in the front is the deity of Radha Krishna, and another Krishna by Krishna's side. So it's a very busy altar. Someday you'll visit these places, and now you'll have some idea of a little bit of the background. It's nice to honor our great souls in disciplic succession, where they have their appearance or disappearance day. So that's what we just did. It happens to be the same as the Gopastami day by Vaishnav calendar. So it's 7:30. And you've been all very patient. So let's see if there's some discussion or questions or comments or anything you'd like to hear about. This little boy is really a handful, huh?
Krishna Maharaj, thank you for a nice lecture. I just want to ask the question, like for Radha Rani deities in our temple, there is a hand, some bag in the hand. I just want to know the pastime of Radha Rani is holding something in his hand in our altar.
On your altar?
Yes.
I don't know. Ask the pujaris. What's he holding?
That is snacks for Krishna.
It's a snack for Krishna. Okay. You can get creative on festival days like this. Yes, in the back. Namapriya.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So regarding the Gopa friends of Krishna, you know how fortunate they are that they get that opportunity.
Yeah.
They are Nitya Siddhas, right?
They what?
They are Nitya Siddhas.
They're Nitya Siddhas. But some of them may be Sadhana Siddhas. But Siddha is Siddha. They don't have a pecking order. But that's what Sanatana Goswami says about them, that some, of course, became and some are eternal.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, I couldn't hear. Take the microphone.
That's the question.
What does Nitya Siddha and Sadhana Siddha mean?
What does it mean? Nitya, you know, right? Nitya means eternal. Like Lord Nityananda, right? Nitya means eternal. And sadhana means practice. Some are, siddha means perfect. Some are eternally perfect. Some are practice and become perfect. Sadhana siddha. How about you? You're doing sadhana, but you're not perfect yet. So you're a sadhaka. But sometimes sadhakas become perfect. They're called sadhana siddhas. And some are already eternally perfect and they're Nityasiddhas. That's the difference. We're neither.
You understand?
Yeah.
Anything else? You have something?
So Maharaj, you mentioned how even in spiritual world there are always problems, and so much so that even Radha and Krishna are separated.
Yeah.
But we also understand that that's because those are just to make the pastimes more sweeter,
Yeah.
because they are separate and then they unite. But in this material world, that's very different, right? We have problems, but
Well, it has everything to do with consciousness, not the circumstances of life. The consciousness makes everything sweet, not the circumstance makes everything sweet. So when consciousness is absorbed in the supreme, then it's very sweet. So there's many teachings how sadhakas, now he knows what a sadhaka is, what sadhakas do when they encounter some difficulty. And they can, just see it as a difficulty, or they can see beyond the difficulty and see, here's a kindness from Krishna for me to become more dependent on him and less dependent upon the circumstance to find happiness, because happiness isn't circumstantial. Happiness is internal. So it's in between position. There's the Nityasiddhas and there's everybody else. So what do? We try to practice and get opportunities to take shelter of the mode of service regardless of circumstance, because service isn't created by circumstance and it's not destroyed by circumstance. There's many nice things to say about how to deal with negative circumstances and the emotion connected with the negative circumstances. Many nice things to say. But bhakti, in short, bhakti is the answer. And that's short. I mean, there's a 4-part seminar that I've spoken on this topic. And there's other seminars and other seminars. But it's just to keep it short. Bhakti has the power to dissolve all that. And then when misfortune comes one's way, it's not a cause of dissatisfaction or turmoil or negative emotions and all of that. It's certainly possible to go into that space, but it's certainly possible to not go into that space. It's a factor of consciousness, as I said at the beginning. We have a relationship with Krishna. And if we become situated in that relationship with Krishna, it's okay. Good fortune, ill fortune. It's the relationship with Krishna that's everything, not the circumstance. And that's the spiritual world. And the good news is Krishna is always kind. That was one of the slides. It's his nature. He's very kind and compassionate. So the difficulty may last for some time. You may know some people that have chronic something, chronic illness or chronic something or chronic something or chronic something or something. And it's not fun. It's not easy. But so then how to deal with it? That's Krishna consciousness. The different situations. It's a long topic. Yes.
Question is, mentioning about the parents of Srinivas Acharya, traveling, and they had been to the in-laws of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Nimai Pandit's marriage house.
Yeah.
Now, I just missed that part. Did they meet the father-in-law of Nimai Pandit, that where this discussion took place?
Father-in-law of whom?
Nimai Pandit, meaning Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
No.
Who was the discussion with?
They met. You spoke very fast, and I don't listen as fast as your mouth goes. So Say it again slowly. Be kind to me.
Yes. You're talking about the parents of Srivas Acharya,
Yeah.
before having him and having a desire to